So this is a little tutorial on a technique I've dubbed hybrid tapping, which is a combination of hybrid picking and fretboard tapping. So to clarify just quickly what those two things are, hybrid picking being a combination of using a regular flat pick and your picking fingers to do this sort of thing. So getting around string skipping and other things that might make a bit of trouble for you if you're just using the flat pick alone. And tapping being hammering on and pulling off notes using one or more of the fingers on your picking hand, so doing this sort of thing. So if you're not sure about those two particular techniques, hybrid picking and hybrid tapping, and not sure how they work, just do YouTube searches on both of those terms and you'll find the instructional material very quickly. Alright, so in putting these things in combination to make what I've called hybrid tapping, it's basically tapping sequences very similar or the same as what I was just doing then, but hybrid tapping then allows you to add the picking finger from your hybrid picking technique to then allow you to cross the strings and do things in ways that are a bit different to what you hear from lots of conventional tapping licks. So for a really basic example, if we're in A minor, alright, so in the box shape at the 5th position for A minor, and if I just focus on the notes on the B string from that particular shape, so the E, F and G, so E, F and G, E, F, G, alright, and I'll start this as a basic tapping sequence, just so you can see what that part of it will be. So I've got basically just picking the first note with my tapping finger and then hammer on with the second finger on the F of the fretting hand and then tapping with the middle finger on the G note. So that's the tapping part, nice and easy, key of A minor, and then what you would quite often want to do in a sequence like that, you'd want to go up to the next note of the scale. And this is where tapping with conventional patterns is a bit different, it tends to skip a lot of notes to make combinations that suit where the tapping finger is going to fall. Whereas if you introduce this hybrid tapping technique, where we're going to start using the hybrid picking finger as part of what we're doing, then we can move through the note sequence of a scale sequentially without needing to interrupt it or alter it necessarily to compensate for the fact that we're doing a tapping technique. So this will look like this. So if I've gone, so tapped with the middle finger, and then if the next note we want to reach is the A on the high E string at the 5th position, then see what my third finger on the picking hand did just then. So I'm not hammering on, I'm just picking as if I was down here, picking that note as if I was finger picking classical guitar or something like that. Alright, so you can see the frets. So that's the sequence, and then if we were to go back down again, we get this very familiar, it's a familiar picking pattern as well, this one. E, F, G, A, G, F, E. That's the sequence, and then using the hybrid tapping technique once again. Okay, so you can see it's quite a powerful way to really roll out a lot of fast notes in scale sequence without having to follow sequences to compensate for the fact that you're up here using your tapping techniques. So quite often you'll hear this sort of thing. That might be a more common sort of tapping approach where you would have to start the sequence on the higher string with your tapping finger to compensate for the fact that you can't pick it easily. Whereas if you just add this one extra finger into the equation, you can do all kinds of things that follow really common legato patterns as well. Alright, so all of these things, when you're doing them in a strict scale, 3-note per string or box shape, that sort of thing, they're generally possible with standard legato technique as well. So at this point you might ask, alright, that's fine, why would you do it then? Well, I've just mentioned that you can do a lot of these things in standard scale shapes. You could certainly do them with standard legato technique. And if you have good legato technique already, then learning how to do this may be of limited value to you. It may not be of much value at all if your legato technique is really good. Okay, so it's not meant to be a substitute or a replacement, I should say, for legato. It's not better than legato technique. It does have a few advantages, and I'll go through those in a moment, but just be aware that if you are a really good legato player already, you've got Satriani-like fluidity under your fingertips on your fretting hand, then I wouldn't want to disrupt your progress with that by focusing too much on this. So the advantages, if you like, then, that I find with this, I'm someone that's always struggled a bit with standard legato, like all that sort of stuff. Although I can do it, it's not something that I've been able to do for very long. I find it much more difficult in certain positions than others, and I've really struggled to be able to work my way through the problems associated with it due to RSI and things like that. So that's really, it's a bit of a cheat, if you like, on the standard legato approach. But it also has a few advantages. Now, one of those advantages is stamina. I can do those things for a very long time. That little example there. Because I'm separating the workload between two hands when I do that, it's quite different to the workload that you put on one set of muscles in your forearm if you're essentially doing that sort of thing with just the one hand. At least for me, it becomes quite sore quite quickly due to not having trained enough relaxation into my technique. Really is what's at the core of that. I'm well aware that is the problem, but nonetheless, I've only got so much time in the day, and like most people, I have a day job, and therefore I can only devote so much time to the techniques that I use and mastering them. So this is a good workaround for me. So stamina is a definite big advantage. Also power as well, because once again, because you're separating the workload between two hands, the power you get, you're kind of using the big advantages of both hands, really, in the sense that you've got the weight of your picking hand bearing down on the flat part of your tapping finger. So when that really hits, you can even hear that through the microphone. I'm not putting any tension into that. That's not because I'm tapping it really hard. It's just because the weight of my hand and the speed with which it's easily able to travel through creates a very strong point of impact. So, and taking advantage of that in legato-like passages can be really advantageous. If I was to try and do that sort of thing up here, for instance, because of the way my fingers are squished up, trying to get that hammer on, even when I'm using my strong 3 fingers and not using the little finger, trying to get that hammer on to work between these 2 fingers is quite difficult. But you introduce that middle finger on the picking hand, alright? So that's why I'm demonstrating this with clean tone as well. I have got a bit of compression on there so the dynamic range doesn't get out of control. Another advantage is also access to some wide arpeggios that it gives you. The example of this I like to use most is the one from the pentatonic scale. So if you're looking, let's just move up here to B for a second and look at B minor. Now, just looking at the box-shaped pentatonic pattern from B minor. Alright, we're looking at pattern 1 and pattern 2, I should say. And if you wanted to pull a B minor chord out of that, just knowing those 2 patterns, alright, and this one extra note up here, so knowing that this note starts on pattern 3, we can get this. So that would be extremely difficult to do with legato technique. You'd need very long fingers and some Paul Gilbert-like control really to be able to do that. So there's wider shapes and things like that by having this extra finger available to allow you to flow through those arpeggio shapes and scale shapes in sequence. It really does open up some possibilities. So in the next tutorial we'll have a look at the example I was playing in the opening, and over the coming weeks I'll post a lot more examples and reveal my arsenal of hybrid tapping licks, if you like, that I find useful on a regular basis. So I hope you do get some use out of those, and thanks for watching.